Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. I am your host, Sir Patrick Macula. All right. Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. Happy Halloween to those of you who are celebrating. If you've got yourself some kids that are going out trick-or-treating tonight, please watch them closely. All the freaks love to come out and play tonight, but make sure that they have fun and make sure that at least one of them brings me back a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, which is something that I have not had in years. And I like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups because it's got peanut butter and chocolate, two of my favorite things, because sometimes things have double meanings. And you know what's even better than peanut butter and chocolate? Nothing at all. That's right. So stay safe this Halloween. I know it's kind of a weird holiday, sort of steeped in evil, but guess what? It's also okay to have a little fun too. Don't take yourself so seriously. However, we're going to take this a little bit seriously. I'm over here on my Twitter thread, and many of you may have, if you're following me on Twitter, you might have read through this already. It's just kind of a generalized opinions about this topic that is now dominating the news on both sides of the aisle. My thoughts on POTUS considering ending birthright citizenship in this thread. And I start off with this here. As many of you know, it is being reported that POTUS is considering ending this practice, a move which will be highly contentious to say the least. And I leave you this link here from the Washington Times. And the Washington Times actually gives you a little news clip here. Let me play some of it for you.
Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Have you talked about that with council?
Yeah, I have.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen. With an executive order. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly
very interesting. I didn't think anybody knew that but me. I thought I was the only one.
So there you have it. President Trump referring to using an executive order in regards to this 14th Amendment. We're going to talk a little bit about the whys and hows and what ifs about that, but I just want to point out right now that he is simply stating about an executive order. And I want to also point out that President Trump was very vague about that. And I think that he was very vague about that on purpose. Let's continue through this thread. Next post, I say, to consider this reasoning so close to the midterms, I would like to refer both to Trump's Art of the Deal and The Art of War, both required reading. I'm sure many of you have already read both of these. If you have not, please do yourself a favor and read them. President Trump has always entered agreements asking for too much. And of course, I use that in quotes, not necessarily too much literally. He knows it and uses that to create sensationalism, but also to give himself lots of room to barter for what he really wants to achieve, a win-win situation. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I mean when I say President Trump was being vague. He simply wants the left to just kind of go, kind of get all butthurt about this executive order thing, because they want to use that argument that he's thrown around his executive privilege. And, let's face it, that's in a lot of ways, that is a dangerous, kind of precedent if a president does that. But we've already seen that happen. I don't think that's what's happening here. But I think that Trump is being very, very vague simply so that this will stay a talking point for a couple reasons leading us up to these last few days into midterms. And here's a quote from The Art of the Deal. My style of deal making is quite simple and straightforward. I aim very high and then I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get what I'm after. Now, what I mean here is I think that Trump being vague about this executive order and angering the Democrats, it's going to create this really, really volatile talking point. And everyone's going to talk about the details of the 14th Amendment. And that's a good thing because it means that people are paying attention. It also means that the Democrats are now defending the Constitution, which is something that they're not normally doing as much as we'd like them to, right? So this has a couple of different desired results, I think. Meanwhile, POTUS has recently been using the phrase common sense at recent rallies. He knows the left will be enraged by this and purposely brought it up at just this time. Now, I'd also like to add a side note, and this is a little bit unrelated, but I think this is also a jab at Tom Steyer and his Common Sense Media Group, but that might be a story for another day. But I do think that is probably has a direct meaning as far as Tom Sawyer, considering they've been going at each other. But like I said, that's a side story, and let's talk about this. So the left, they're going to get all upset about this. They're saying, no, this is directly a violation of the 14th Amendment. We're going to talk a little bit about the 14th Amendment, but I think that that's where POTUS right now wants to leave it so that the conversation starts. The left has already jumped all over this, claiming a violation of the 14th Amendment, and in some respects, they are correct. Now, don't jump all over me here. In some respects, they are. Now, Dan Bongino did a real good piece today in his show talking about the difference between basically like a physical jurisdiction and, a constitutional jurisdiction. Example. If you are American and your American husband or wife or partner or whatever, and you head out and you go overseas and you have yourself a child, that child under constitutional jurisdiction is still an American. Why would that be, right? Because they're still holding American passports. They haven't, revoked those. You are still an American. And a lot of you people probably have been born overseas, whether you were military brats or whatnot. You are still an American, and that is why. Now, this has never specifically been presided over by the Supreme Court, and I think that that's where we're going with this. And Dan Bongino seemed to agree. He lays it out real nice. If you happen to catch his, I believe it's, I've got it over here, 839, episode 839. Trump, in all likelihood, is simply hoping to clarify the meaning of what is to be a legal citizen and have children in the USA. Congressman Steve King presents the case, and it takes you, let me take you over here to steveking.house. This was posted yesterday by Congressman Steve King, titled King's Efforts to End Birthright Citizenship for Illegals Advanced by President Trump. I am very happy that my legislation will soon be adopted by the White House as national policy. Congressman Steve King, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, releases the following statement in the wake of news reports that President Trump intends to restore the plain meaning of the 14th Amendment by ending the mistaken practice of granting American citizenship at birth to the children of illegal aliens. King is the recognized leader in Congress on this effort, and this is the lead author of H.R. 140 and bill ending birthright citizenship that he has introduced in each Congress since 2011. Quote, I am delighted to learn that President Trump intends to end automatic citizenship at birth for the children of illegal aliens whose parents have no ties and owe no allegiance to the United States, said King. Granting birthright citizenship is a historical mistake which attempts to erase the phase and subject to the jurisdiction thereof out of the 14th Amendment in defiance of what the framers of that amendment were attempting to achieve. And again, this is such a very important wording here, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. We were just talking about the difference between like this physical or constitutional jurisdiction. And again, Dan Bongino covers it really, really nicely. And it's so important. Ending birthright citizenship for illegal aliens will decimate the disgusting birth tourism industry, and it will ensure that illegal aliens cannot use anchor babies in order to take advantage of our overly generous welfare system. I commend the president for his actions, and I am very happy that my legislation will soon be adopted by the White House as national policy. The operative text of the 14th Amendment reads as follows. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Now, let me just stop right there. So that means if you are you were born here, your parents are either naturalized citizens or were born here, you are a citizen of the United States. Naturalized can mean that you are an immigrant. It means you were naturalized. It means you went through a process. Maybe many of you already have. That's a very, very important distinction. And of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. So you can see where the importance of this word jurisdiction is, and it doesn't seem to be a physical jurisdiction. That's a very important technicality in which I truly believe that President Trump is going to be able to enact this executive order. Now, this won't go without a fight. This will likely go all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. It would not surprise me if it does at all. It may be a long, hard headache, but I do think it's worth it. I do think it's worth even allowing the unhinged left, if you will, to take this to the Supreme Court, because it's something that if you're going to decide it, what a great time to decide it now, considering that we've got Kavanaugh in. This seems to make a lot of sense. But like I said, it could be a long, cold, hard headache, but in the long run could be very, very worth it for the future of our country. So we're talking essentially about illegal immigrants, right? And no matter what the left tells you, that's essentially all we're really trying to talk about. This original wording was to kind of help welcome, black slaves back in the day into the fold, saying, look, truly, you are a citizen of the United States. This was a great time in our country where we really took a step forward. So I don't really think that that's what we're trying to do, is abolish the 14th Amendment and this and that. And I think that's what the left's talking points are really, really going to be. But I do know that we are going to get deep, deep into this over the next few days. And if you're watching the news already, you've already seen this. So let's go back to my thread, if we may. Neither the unhinged left nor Trump will probably clarify this, as in my humble opinion, the sensationalism is what he is going after. The secondary reasoning is for both sides to work together on a common sense solution. Yeah, and this is my point. President Trump could have easily said how, why, exactly what. He could have answered a lot of questions, but he kept it vague because he wanted people to fight over it. And he wanted people to fight over it because this talking point kind of serves a couple purposes, in which I've already sort of spoken about. But at the end of the day, Trump always holds something as a threat, lets the left freak out about it, and then he kind of dials it back to this common sense solution. So the left is going to say, oh my God, he's trying to abolish the 14th Amendment. No. We'll come together in some sort of common sense solution, which will essentially be this executive order that probably will go through. And I imagine the Supreme Court likely will vote this through if it goes that far. Now, here's another quote from The Art of the Deal. You can't con people, at least not for long. You can create excitement, you can do wonderful promotion and get all kinds of press, and you can throw in a little hyperbole, and that's exactly what's happening right now with him saying, I'm thinking about doing this. He didn't just sign this executive order and just kind of come out of nowhere with it. No, he threw it out there on purpose because he wanted the chum to attract the sharks. But if you don't deliver the goods, people will eventually catch on. Donald Trump, Art of the Deal. He knows this about the wall, and he knows this about this too. He knows that his voter base is clearly going to support this. He knew it, and that's why he threw it out there. He knew his detractors were going to hate it, and he wanted to let us chew on it for a while. Next post, the ins and outs of debating the 14th Amendment is an incredibly complicated debate, which I think we're already going to be taking, part in. One which Trump is likely to lose, at least in the media. And he knows. Yeah, he knows he's going to get, basically raked over the coals by the left through this. But let's face it, he's going to do it anyway. And this is, of course, coinciding with this migrant invasion that is happening. So clearly the timing was something that he was prepared for. The other day, I posted this quote from The Art of War. POTUS is not afraid to advance his agenda and explore how far he can push. He is also not afraid to back off from time to time. And here's the quote from Sun Tzu. The general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. And yeah, my point is that President Trump has been very clear about what's going to happen with this migrant invasion. And because he's being so tough, I have a feeling that he is going to probably be as accommodating as he can to the left in other issues. He's getting just railroaded on this whole, the shooting in Pennsylvania and all the different attacks and whatever. People are literally trying to directly connect him to these attacks. And he knows that, A, he needs a distraction. He does, whether you like it or not, whether he's innocent or guilty or not, which we, of course, know he has nothing to do with these things. But the fact of the matter is that this is not good for any president. It's not good for our country to be fighting over this. And I think both sides clearly don't want to see any more of this kind of violence. So this is a great new debate. All right. Trump outwardly states that this can be done with an executive order. The legitimacy of this is debatable, as it should be. We don't want a president of any party tossing around EOs affecting our Constitution. We've had that happen before, right? Even if it's a president we support. Yeah, and I think if you have any kind of love for civil liberties, that's something that's always going to be important, regardless of whether you love the president or not. I also believe that POTUS is distracting from the horrors of the events that have unfolded this week. I was just kind of mentioning that if I were his PR manager, I would advise him to do the same, even though a thinking man should already know that he's not personally responsible for these tragedies. Yeah, look, no country benefits from prolonged warfare, and that is also in The Art of War, and that is what will happen if we keep focusing on these pipe bomb attacks and these shootings and whatever. It's going to create more of them. At least with this, we can be debating some sort of policy. The ploy seems to be working, and maybe ploy wasn't my best choice of words, just to say don't don't rake me over the coals for that, as the topic is now being hotly debated on every MSM outlet. Yeah, just turn on the TV. That's exactly what they're talking about now. Everyone's talking about the 14th Amendment. Couple this with the approaching invasion at the border, it will force both sides to act. If the left gets too worked up, they will overreact and to further alienate even the most liberal of their base. If they don't react enough, Trump gets what he wants. Yeah, clearly President Trump sees something within that wording, and it seems to make a lot of sense. I think he's going to get a lot of steam with this, and I think a lot of people are going to see the legitimacy of that, which is only going to force the left to kind of get worked up over nothing, because they know that this is going to kill what they think is going to be their voter base. They need illegals. Otherwise, because they're bleeding votes right now. If they don't get these illegals in, it's just not going to happen. And if you get the Constitution backing this is probably never going to happen. So this is really, really dangerous for them. And the more they get worked up, the more further they alienate their own base. Many of which may be you listening right now. Many of you may be former Democrats or whatnot that just got tired of their crap. In the end, it is simply my layman's opinion that this issue, along with the border crisis, will align just in time for polling and will be fresh on everyone's mind. A common sense solution will be demanded by both political sides. Yeah, right now, President Trump can just threaten the EO, let them freak out. Then we can kind of find this common ground. We'll find the wording, and we're going to find whatever it is in this 14th Amendment that actually needs to be adjusted. And I think we all know what that is. And it'll come out looking like a common sense solution, which was exactly what Trump wanted in the first place. It just sounds extreme when he first sort of threatens this EO. And that's why he didn't just sign the EO. That's why he talked about it first, so that when we finally make it look like it's being dialing back, he's getting what he wanted in the first place. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this correctly. I do not know if there will be an amendment or not. I still feel that we will see another surprise regarding what's happening at the border. Either way, Trump and his team has anticipated that the world will be watching, and they are not afraid to double down on this stance. Yeah, nobody in this administration has been nebulous at all in how we are going to react with the border. And it seems like the left is kind of trying to bait us into saying we're going to shoot people and this and that. You see the line of questioning, whether it's through Trump or Mattis, head of the NSA or whatever. It's going to be a lot of, talk about, well, are you going to shoot them if they go across the border? They're trying to kind of give you this extreme so that we'll bite on it. And conservatives have not really bit on it. President Trump hasn't bit on it, but we're clearly sending troops down to the border. Trump has not wavered on that stance, and the administration hasn't either. So they've been very, very clear and concise with what they plan to do, but not particularly specific as far as opening fire and whatnot. God forbid we have anything like that, but I suppose it could be a possibility. But either way, Trump knows exactly what he was doing. That's why he called this out. He knew that this is, obviously going to affect the midterms. So this is purposely meant to draw some attention to this whole situation. And I still have a feeling, we found already members of ISIS within this camp. And I think we're going to find a lot more human trafficking situations. We're already starting to uncover this. I have a feeling there might be another big, I don't want to call it a boom, but probably a big surprise regarding what's happening at the border, like I said. Moral of the story, it is my guess that at the end of it all, the rewording of Congressman King's proposal will seem like common sense, even though at the moment it is considered extreme. Definition of legal citizenship is what's really at stake, not the 14th Amendment. Exactly. We're not going after the 14th Amendment. We are essentially just trying to shore up our borders to make sure that illegals don't come over here and do this sort of like the anchor baby thing that you talk about. And they're really doing it from all countries. This could be Russia. You could argue that it could be Russia. It could be China is a really big violator. Not just here in the States. They do this all over, wherever they sort of can. So this is an important issue. That's my take on it. And again, please keep in mind that, this is a layman's take. I'm no expert. And a lot of this could change by tomorrow. I have no idea how it's going to play out. But that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. I would also like to throw out there, too, that President Trump in that little video seemed very, very confident in what he was saying. Now, this might have been something that he picked out all along, but I can't help but assume that there might have been a little bit of help coming from one Anon Dershowitz, who sort of joined the team some months ago. Now, you may like Alan Dershowitz, you may not really care about him either way, but there's one thing that we can say about Alan Dershowitz is that he knows the Constitution, and that has been really, really important in these months leading up to the midterms. And so I have a feeling that he probably played a big hand in this, and Alan Dershowitz has advised many, many presidents, and has always stayed pretty true to the Constitution. There's one thing that I've always respected about him, that I appreciate about him, especially in times like these where you have such a vilified president. So that's my take. I'm sticking to it. You can let me know what you think down below, or what you think I might have missed. I'm sure that it's probably greatly flawed, but at least for now, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And finally, let me leave you with this quote-unquote news story from one of the most trusted names in news. This is Competition NBC. Mueller refers alleged scheme targeting him to FBI for investigation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to know how much I love you, you know now, because it pains me to read this article written by Brandy Zadrozny. One of my least favorite people on the planet, Beta Ben Collins and Tom Winter. And anybody who knows, who's seen me on Twitter long, knows that I've had a feud with Ben Collins for quite a while. Ben's a little bit of a beta, a little bit of a liar, lied about Q, lied about President Trump. And instead of copping to it, he just blocks people. You are a sad failure, Ben. I'm going to read your article anyway, just so everyone can know what a sad failure you are. Special Counsel Robert Mueller last week asked the FBI to investigate a possible scam in which a woman would make false claims that he was guilty of sexual misconduct and harassment after several political reporters were contacted about doing a story on the alleged misconduct. Excuse me. Multiple reporters were contacted over the past few weeks by a woman who said she had been offered money to say she had been harassed by Mueller, the special counsel who is probing possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. After investigating, according to the political website Hill Reporter, the reporters each independently determined the allegations of misconduct and harassment were likely a hoax, that it was unclear if the woman had been offered money to make the claim. The reporters then contacted the special counsel's office to report that they had been approached about the scheme. When we learned last week of allegations that women were offered money to make false claims about the special counsel, we immediately referred the matter to the FBI for investigation, said Peter Carr, spokesman for the special counsel. While investigating the possibility of a hoax, the Hill reporters Ed Krasenstein, who was one of the reporters contacted, said he received threats, including a text message reading, "You're in over your head, drop this," which included his and another editor's home address. Okay, so this really pains me, and this is a long article, and I'm going to try and get you up to speed the best I can, but I just want to fill you in on some of these characters if you don't know. This guy, Ed Krasenstein from the Hill, him and his brother, Brian Krasenstein, are a couple of these smarmy little idiots on Twitter that somehow magically appear below every one of President Trump's tweets. Okay, maybe not every one, nearly every one. Himself or Brian, always saying something really, really terrible. These guys are incredibly divisive. These guys are incredibly rude, and somehow magically find their way all to the top of the President Trump's tweets. Now, if you ever try to comment on someone's tweets, especially someone with as many followers as President Trump, you would realize that's nearly mathematically impossible to be able to do so. So something is helping them get there. I'd also like to point out that those guys were selling some banner ads some years ago that was a little sketchy. That's about as far as I'm going to go into with that, because I don't like to dox people. Well, that's not necessarily doxing them, but I just want you to know Ed and Brian are not exactly clean-handed when it comes to that. They were selling banner ads to some sketchy companies that didn't really exist. And that's as far as I'll go. So anyway, these guys are knuckleheads is what I'm saying. Around the same time, reporters began to be contacted about the misconduct allegations. Jack Berkman, a Republican lobbyist and radio host, began promoting via his Facebook page that he is investigating sexual misconduct and alcohol-related allegations against Mueller. On Tuesday morning, he tweeted that he would hold a press conference 2 days later to reveal the first of special counsel Robert Mueller's sex assault victims. Over the past 2 years, Berkman has peddled a separate, evolving conspiracy theory that has blamed several different wild plots for the death of Democratic staffer Seth Rich, who was shot on a Washington street in 2016 during an apparent botched robbery. Okay, so this angers me to even think that these guys have the balls to say what they're going to say. This punk Krasenstein and his brother spread tons of lies. They're talking about this guy, Jacob Wall, who was part of this Surefire intelligence. Yeah, it does sound sketchy, doesn't it? They're basically taking this whole Steele dossier thing and flipping it around and turning it into this magical, really weird sounding story called surefire intelligence that was supposed to bring Mueller down. What it looks like is like they're trying to get out in front of the narrative, knowing that Robert Mueller is likely going to come out with nothing. And so they're trying to get out in front of it and use sort of that reverse psychology by saying that conservatives are going after Mueller, trying to discredit him because they know what he's going to come out is going to be damning. And we all know that's not really the case, is it? So it's a really, really weird story, and I'll leave it for you if you want to get into it. But all I got to tell you are the people that were involved. And of course, Rachel Maddow was all over it with her smarmy little self on NBC. And of course, she was interviewing this little beta miracle over here, Ben Collins, and we've got the Krasensteins involved. Now, normally I would not say just, hey, look who's involved and assume that the story is false. But when you've got characters like that, it would be really, really hard for me to buy the legitimacy of this story. They're selling it as a fake story. They're selling it as this person who's trying to discredit Mueller, but isn't credible himself. And they're probably right, probably because they made it up, making it look like conservatives are going after Mueller as if we are desperate. But we're not desperate, are we? We kind of know what's up. And I also want to rememberize you that Rod Rosenstein met with the president, and they flew together. And aboard that little aircraft, they got themselves a SCIF, a sensitive compartment information facility, and that freaked the Democrats out. So clearly, President Trump was speaking with Rosenstein about something, and it was driving them nuts, not knowing what it was about. And it was something that needed to be discussed in a SCIF, which leads me to think that President Trump is completely calm with this situation. He's come out saying that he's perfectly willing to talk about Trump-Russia collusion with Robert Mueller. And although his legal counsel has advised him against it, he seems very confident. Now they're talking about possibly doing it. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But this story is definitely bunk. Ben Collins is definitely a liar and a wussy. I just like to throw that in because I don't like Ben Collins. But you see what's up. So as this starts to enter the counter narrative this week, you can kind of get an idea what this is about. But it literally looks like they were taking this. They're taking this. They even call it, what was it called? Surefire intelligence. Sounds like Crossfire Hurricane. They're literally trying to clown the Steele dossier by coming up with their own fake dossier. And I don't even know what to tell you, except these guys are so stupid. And once more, that Ben Collins is a wussy. Okay, boys and girls, that's all I got for you today. Stay tuned. I'll be coming at you soon. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. For those of you who are new to my channel, please keep in mind that from time to time, you will be unclicked, unshared, and unsubscribed, and unnotified. That's the game that we play with social media, so just keep checking back. Thanks to all of you who've been sharing and liking my videos. I greatly appreciate it. I will be coming at you very soon with more. Enjoy your Halloween. If Ben Collins or one of the Krasenstein brothers comes knocking at your door asking for candy, do me a favor. Take a little bit of their candy and redistribute it to some other deserving kids and tell them, hey, that's inclusivity. That's equality. That's the democratic way. All right, boys and girls, all my links are down below to my Gab, my BitChute, my Brighteon.com, and of course, I'm over here at Twitter at IPOT1776, where I spend a lot of my time. Please follow me at IPOT1776. I am Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay optimistic.